Thank you for joining ALA for today's webinar, The Future of Law Practice Management with John Remsen. Remember, all ALA webinars are available on demand. They also count for Certified Legal Manager credit. Learn more at alanet.org/CLM. If you have any questions about today's webinar or future programming, please call 847-267-1396. It is my pleasure to introduce your speaker for today, John Remsen, Jr. John is one of the country's leading authorities on law firm leadership, management, marketing, and business development. After serving as a marketing director at two major law firms, Remsen formed the Remsen Group, a consulting firm that works exclusively with law firms. In 2002, he created the Managing Partner Forum, a highly acclaimed conference series for leaders of smaller and mid-sized law firms. In 2012, he was inducted into the College of Law Practice Management. John, when you are ready, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you, Billy. I appreciate that, and thanks for that introduction. And it's great to be with ALA as always. And this is a presentation I'm giving for the first time, and it features a lot of data that we've collected through our Managing Partner Forum and a survey we do every other year, which asks managing partners how their firms are responding to the changing marketplace. And we all know there's change all around us, and some firms are adapting slowly. Other firms aren't doing much at all. And I think as the marketplace shakes out, there will be winners and losers. The business of law is increasingly important. Law practice management and all that it entails is becoming increasingly important. I think firms more and more are realizing, yes, we're a profession, and we shouldn't lose sight of that, but we're also running businesses, and businesses need strategic plans and leadership and investments in the future. And as we all know, lawyers tend to look at precedent, where we've been, our past, and the way we've always done things around here. And we're trying to help firms look forward and getting a much clearer vision on where they're going and implementing initiatives to take them where they want to go. Many of you probably, we've run into each other over the years. I've been a speaker at ALA meetings, chapter, regional, national level, probably for 20, 25 years now, and have worked with about 400 mid-sized law firms. And one thing that's really clear is that although every firm's different in terms of its personality and culture and in history, we're all grappling with the same issues. And change is all around us. Technology. My goodness, is that a game changer? It's not going to let up anytime soon. Competition, globalization, consolidation, a lot going on in the marketplace for legal services. Law practice management is increasingly important. And I think our mission at the Managing Partner Forum and ALA are very closely aligned. We're about the business of law and law practice management and helping managing partners and firm administrators be more effective in very challenging roles. Billy mentioned these leadership conferences we do. Our next one will be in Atlanta, May 6-7, 2020. And you might want to encourage your managing partner to attend or your managing partner up next to attend because I think, we're beating the drum and what we say aligns very closely with what most firm administrators are trying to preach to their firm leaders. We've done a lot of these conferences, about 1,200 managing partners over the years. So check us out. Oh, as well, managingpartnerforum.org is a website we run and chock full of data. So this data I go through today is all on the website, as well as our 2017 survey. We do audience polling. I find lawyers love data and what other firms are doing. And if you can, cherry pick some data from this presentation from our website that's, hammers home the points you're trying to drive home with your lawyers, please consider it a resource. I often find when I'm making a recommendation to a law firm, the first question we get is, well, who else is doing that? And bring on the data and show them who else is doing that. I find that that's often a very persuasive way to get lawyers' attention and get them coming around. So here are the results of our 2019 Law Firm Leadership Survey. This is the first time I'm doing this presentation. I'm lined up to present to several of the chapters between now and year end. So this is fresh data, first time being publicly presented in a webinar or in any type of speaking format. So hopefully it's helpful to you. And if you want more, you want follow-up, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to help. A little bit about our objectives, our methodology. As I mentioned, we do this survey every other year, and our purpose here is to create a very comprehensive resource that tries to capture how smaller and mid-sized law firms are evolving and adapting to the marketplace. We try to bring lots of benchmarking data that's helpful to firm leadership, to convince firm owners of things we might need to be doing. Your roles, managing partner roles, are increasingly important. As I mentioned earlier, law practice management is increasingly important. So we'll share all this information with you. This year's survey, we often, try to get some trending data and ask many of the same questions every other year, but we've introduced new questions as well. This year we honed in on technology and what firms are doing with technology and their investments and training of technology, and KPIs, key performance indicators. What do firms look for to measure and improve firm performance? And so that's kind of fun too, and we'll present some KPI data toward the end. We asked 40 questions. 167 firms participated. The firm sizes ranged from 10 to, say, 200 lawyers. We had a handful more than 200, but it really is geared towards smaller and mid-sized law firms. The survey was conducted in April 2019, and we use SurveyMonkey and keep it pretty simple to evoke strong participation rates. Here's a breakdown of the firm sizes. As you can see here from the data, and this is all unfiltered, that we're solidly smaller and mid-sized law firms. And as well, most firms describe themselves as full-service commercial law firms. And there's some insurance defense firms in there, some boutiques in there, but that gives you a breakdown of the demographics of the firms participating in our 2017 effort. Let's first talk a little bit about leadership. Leadership is so important, and having strong, passionate, committed firm leaders, and not just at the managing partner level, but through your practice groups, your departments, your branch offices. We got the right people in these roles. So let's look at a little bit of data about leadership. Again, these questions posed to the managing partner, and here's what they had to say. Their titles, managing partner. I like CEO, president. It's a little more leadership-oriented. The word management as opposed to leadership. Management, that just suggests processes, procedures, keeping the trains running, maintaining the status quo. I think more than ever, leadership is required. Pushing the envelope, initiating change, focusing on long-term strategic objectives, not just managing the day-to-day, but looking forward at the bigger picture and where we're going. Most people have been in these roles for a good run. Look at that, a third of them, 10 or more years. So once people find their ways, their places to these roles, many stick around a while at the managing partner level. Remember, these are managing partners. We asked, what do you believe to be your most important contributions? I have some thoughts on this slide, and we see managing partners focusing on long-term goals. Good. Building consensus. We could be building consensus between now and the end of time among a group of lawyers. Not easy to achieve consensus. And I'm often encouraging the managing partner, all right, enough consensus building already. It's time to make a decision and lead. And if we're trying to get every partner at the firm to buy into something and achieve unanimous agreement, we're probably not going to do much of anything. I think once we have 75, 80%, a good solid supermajority of the equity partners wanting to move, we move. I find this disturbs me. Too many managing partners spending time on day-to-day operations. That's not what a managing partner should be doing. Rather, these items need to go up higher on the list, dealing with chronically underperforming partners, keyword chronic. We can all have an off year, but if we've got people who are really slowing down and doing little to step up their game, I think that's a problem, and it really dampers the performance and profitability of the entire law firm if we tolerate too much chronic underperformance as well. Worse than chronic underperformance is bad behavior. And calling that out, enforcing culture. The culture of the firm is determined largely by what we're willing to tolerate, and if we're willing to tolerate bad behavior and chronic underperformance, it's not good for the enterprise. So that's what managing partners tell us are their most important contributions. I don't always agree. Less focus on the consensus building and day-to-day, more focus on long-term, leading change, calling out the bad behavior, leading by example. Formal job descriptions. This always fascinates me. We ask the managing partners, or everybody, the 167 firm leaders participating, do you have a formal job description? Something in writing that sets forth what you're supposed to do and what authorities you have. And 55% of managing partners don't have a job description. This just floors me. CEO of a multi-million-dollar enterprise and no job description. Of those that do have job descriptions, 60% say, I'm glad I do. A good chunk say, boy, I wish the firm paid more attention to it. Only a sliver, 2%, say, I wish I didn't have a job description. What's fascinating is on the flip side, of people who don't have the job description, do you want one? And 80% say, hell no. I don't want to be held accountable. But I think it's time to codify leadership roles in terms of the managing partner, practice group leaders, partners in charge of marketing, office managing partners. So often these are ill-defined roles. We defer to senior people. We defer to rainmakers for these roles, and they may not be the right people. Different skill set required of leaders as opposed to rainmakers or people who've just been there a long time. So getting the right people to these roles, getting them job descriptions, getting them training, this is law practice management. We ask the managing partners, you grooming your successor? And about a third say yes. This is part of succession, something that many firms neglect. But I think administrators, managing partners, practice group leaders, we should all be keeping an eye on who's following us and grooming them into the roles so they hit the ground running, getting the right people in those roles. And often it's younger lawyers who care about the future of the firm, who are going to be around a heck of a lot longer than the seniors. And I think getting some junior lawyers into these leadership positions is a really good idea. I love this slide as well. How does your firm select its managing partner? And number one answer, it's loose goose, no formal election. There's that consensus thing. I tend to favor a formal election, term limits, perhaps. But let's get serious about these leadership roles, get the right people in these roles, and empower them to lead. We can also talk about fellowship. A lot of equity partners have trouble following much of anything. They love autonomy. Dr. Larry Richard tells us that. Lawyers love autonomy. So applying structure and leadership can be a bit challenging for many, many firms. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying to move in this direction. A little bit about leadership. Governance. I know that is kind of a cliche image, but it's what I came up with. Governance matches our blues and all that good stuff. And I'm all about streamlining governance and make decisions efficiently. We don't all have to be in the room to talk about every decision. As a firm, I see far too much of that going on. It's very inefficient. Rather, let's consider an executive committee and empower it with some authorities and decision-making ability, and then push decisions up to the managing partner much as possible. Streamline governance, push decisions up. How frequently do your partners meet? Monthly, the number one answer. We are a firm, and I think meeting on a regular basis to share, build friendships, trust, team is important. And monthly seems to be the most common pacing at which partners meet. Got 5% of the firms that get together on a weekly basis, and you've got a handful of firms over here on the right side of this graph that hardly ever meet at all. And I might challenge them to suggest, are you really a firm, or are you more a kind of an office-sharing collection of sole practitioners type arrangement? I think firms meet, communicate, share, team, well-run meetings. Executive committees, smaller mid-sized law firms, about 3 in 4 have one. I like executive committees. Prescribe their responsibilities, what decisions rest with them, what decisions must be brought to the full partnership. Maybe put out there what it takes, what we expect of our executive committee members in terms of the time commitment, their participation at meetings. So often not codified, the role of the executive committee, and then beyond that, the role of the members of the executive committee, if your firm does have one. I'm working with a firm now that's very democratic, 8 equity partners, firm here in Atlanta. And I think one of our outcomes in my work with them is to set up an executive committee. Succession's in play within this firm as the founders, move into their 60s, and they care about legacy. So one of my recommendations is going to be to set up an executive committee, include some young blood on that executive committee as well. So the young folks start to step into leadership roles and learn something about how the firm is run on the business side. How often does that executive committee meet? Those with ECs, and here's what survey respondents said. Most meet, looks like 45% meet monthly, and then another 40% meet more frequently than that. Here's where the decision gets made. I would suggest 90% of the firm's day-to-day decisions get made. And so this group should be meeting on a regular basis, well-run meetings, and I think it's very important the firm administrator participate in these meetings. You're part of the leadership team and going to be responsible for implementing a lot of the stuff the executive committee might come up with. And I'm always encouraging, almost always encouraging law firms, bring your administrators to partnership meetings. Give them voice. Make them part of the team. And listen to what they have to say. They care. They've got good ideas. And I still run into firms from time to time where, our administrator's not a lawyer. They don't need to come to the partnership meeting. You just want to, kind of slap these people upside the head and suggest that, non-lawyers do have contributions to make to your firm to make sure it's running efficiently as a business. What about forced representation on that executive committee? The idea here being, each department needs a representative, and we got to make sure that happens. Each office needs a representative. Maybe the young people need a seat within the executive committee. 2/3 of firms do not have such forced representation, but it's something to think about so that we're not just one particular faction of the firm dominates the executive committee. That's probably not good, but we want a good cross-section of the firm in terms of geography, different offices, practice areas, and I think ages. We want senior and junior people on our executive committee. Worked with a firm a couple of years ago. Their executive committee was 5 white guys, a couple of them approaching 80. They were all at least 70, and it's the same executive committee since the 1980s. and surprise that the young people don't feel engaged and don't feel that they have say-so when it comes to decision making. but people in their 70s and 80s are making decisions about the future of our law firm. They're going out the door. Let's get the young people in there making decisions about the future of the law firm. Compensation committees, about a third of firms claim to have a separate compensation committee, 37% to be precise. It's been said that if you have a compensation committee and an executive committee, you really don't have an executive committee because the action lies with the comp committee. But comp committees, I often suggest smaller, mid-sized law firms roll that function into the executive committee, and no reason to make committees. Your committees should be effective, working, clearly defined roles. Firm retreats. I love the firm retreats. I do a lot of these, and here's the frequency with which firms meet. 60%, this is a little blurred over, it looks like, when we did the import to this platform. This is more than once a year. This is once a year, the number one answer. About a third of firms have a retreat once a year. This is every 2 years. This is every 3 to 5 years. And here we've got almost 20% of firms who've never had a firm retreat. Is that a firm? Or is that collection of individuals sharing space? I think it's important we get out of the office, sequester ourselves at least once a year to talk about stuff, to build friendships and relationships, enjoy one another's company, but get out of that day-to-day rat race to talk about the big picture, where we're taking this firm, what we need to do to get where we want to go. Because, hope and pray is not a particularly good strategy in today's marketplace for legal services. You need a plan. In the context of governance, we asked about industry practice groups. I love the industry practice groups as marketing platforms. I think it helps set up our target audience. They promote teamwork and cross-selling, and a lot of reasons to set up and market to industry. Start with one or two. And again, we got some blurred stuff, it looks like, on our axis down here. But this is, yes, we're all in. We've got executive committees working. About 3 in 10 firms say that. We're trying them out. We got a few test runs going, about 30%. So here's almost 60% of firms applying industry-focused practice group in some sense. This bar represents the 18% who are thinking about setting up an executive committee, an industry practice group. A very small group has said, we've tried it, they don't work for us. I'd suggest you didn't do it quite right. But industry practice groups, if you're interested, I've got a template and a separate little document, and shoot me an email that presents why I think industry practice groups make a lot of sense, how to set them up, and then kind of a template for I call it a kind of a working template that kind of lays it out, that is very, very helpful, because a lot of lawyers don't get the difference between industry and area of law. I've learned they have kind of trouble wrapping their head around it. So if you kind of lay out, how it works, they will start to get it. Start with 1, maybe 2, get it up, get it running. I've seen firms try to set up 8, 10 industry groups all at once, and that's just a recipe for for disaster. Start with 1 or 2, pilot programs, get it working, showcase the success, and then you can replicate that model to other industries. Just say, shoot me an email if you'd like some more information on industry practice groups. I think they're great. Here's kind of a catch-all question. Has your firm moved toward a more structured governance model in the last 5 years? And 45% say yes. Yes, we have. We're tightening it up. We're running the place more as a business. We're focused on law practice management more than ever before. And as part of that, we're tightening our governance model. Streamlining decision-making, codifying roles, all those good things. Multi-tiered partnership structures, 70% of mid-law are there. This is income, non-equity partners. Often this is set up to accommodate the work-life balance, or maybe people who are good technicians but don't bring it all in to become a firm owner. service partners, perhaps lawyers without books of business, but multi-tiered partnership structures. I tend to be a proponent to accommodate that work-life balance. I think if you're an equity partner, you're all in. You're all in. And this part-time equity partner stuff, no. But you know, we've got young people who do want work-life balance, and that's fine. You can make a fine living. You're not going to be eligible for ownership. Importantly, put these paths to partnership, both the non-equity and equity track, in writing. You know, what are the criteria to become a non-equity partner? Put it out there. Years with firm, billable contributions, non-billable contributions. Set the expectation out there and put it in writing and talk about it ad nauseum. And as well, the criteria to become a firm owner. Put it in writing, I say. Years with firm, years in practice, the ability to handle a matter start to finish, a book of business. More and more firms are starting to require $300,000-$400,000 a year in origination to become eligible for consideration as an equity partner. I think that's very reasonable. An owner brings more value than just grinding out billable hours for 7 or 8 or 9 years, but brings more value in terms of clients, in terms of leadership, in terms of mentoring and training young lawyers. But put it out there in writing is my recommendation almost all the time. The young ones want to know what the deal is, by the way. The young ones, you know, these millennials that we all tend to, you know, challenge many law firms, they want to know what the deal is. And so I think if you want to keep them, retain them, put it out there so they know exactly what the criteria is to become an owner of the firm. Talk a little bit about strategic planning. If you've heard me talk before, you've known I'm a huge proponent of firm-wide strategic plans. I think every firm, regardless of practice mix, size, should have a document in writing that sets forth where we're taking the ship. Keep it simple. I encourage firms look out 5 years. Let's put it in terms of our practice mix, our client mix, our footprint geographically, and our firm size. Keep it simple. What do we want to grow? What do we want to perhaps not grow or wean ourselves away from? Put it in writing. Do we want to grow? What is the appetite to grow the firm overall? Growth for growth's sake is not a good strategy, but industry-focused, client-focused growth, measured, strategic, I think is likely to be far more successful. So here's the question: does your firm have a written firm-wide strategic plan? And we see 51% say yes. And that's a breakthrough. This is the first time we've seen more than half of the firms in our survey say they have a firm-wide strategic plan. So we're seeing movement. More and more firms are doing this. Why? Because we're running a business and we need a plan. Hope and pray, as I mentioned earlier, is not that particularly good strategy. You see a lot of firms out here, 21%, were considering a plan. Check that, I'm doing that wrong way. This is no. 16% say no. 30% say yes, more than 5 years. 21% say yeah, it's a relatively recent thing. 33%, 1 in 3 said we're thinking about it. Stop thinking. Do it. Do it. You may want to reach out to an outsider. You may want to try to do it yourself as a firm, but do it. You need a plan. People need to know where we're going and what we're looking like. I find often it's the lease, the expiration of our current lease that triggers the plan because we need to know how much space to sign up for. One of the big pushbacks when we drill down, not in this year's survey, past surveys, we've drilled down on why doesn't your firm have a plan? Of those without a plan, why not? And I think some firms are nervous about the issues that might surface. The tensions we've been sweeping under the rug for years, hoping they go away. Planning's going to out those issues and bring them to the surface, and a lot of firms just aren't prepared to deal with it. what was it, Jack Nicholson in the movie, you can't handle the truth. I think there's a lot of that going on in many smaller, mid-sized law firms. But if we can't have a candid conversation among firm owners about important issues like the future of our enterprise, what's that all about? Firms with plans. Can you attribute improved performance? If you're on the call, you want your firm to have a plan, they don't, you're getting pushback, here's the data to present. Firms with a plan, of those with a plan, has it been a good thing? Improved your firm's performance? Look at that. Overwhelmingly, yes. It's made us a better, more profitable, cohesive, and sustainable law firm. You got a handful of people, probably the folks who just went through a planning process, who say the jury's still out. And one firm, I guess, had a bad experience. But overwhelmingly, firms with plans say it's been a good exercise. Here's the question. What's your personal opinion? If you don't have a plan, managing partner, firm leader, filling out this survey, talk to me. And half of them say, I'm sold on a plan, but I just can't get the buy-in. Bring them the data. Don't give up. Keep beating the drum. We're too busy. It's too expensive. They're the reasons, the objections. Within the strategic plan, here's what firms are focused on. This is good data as well. Marketing, business development's been topping the list since we've been asking this question. Marketing is red hot. Firms continue to invest in it, try to improve their marketing. We're seeing a shift from marketing. I equate that to stuff we buy, our brand, our brochure, our website, our charitable giving, our listings and such. Business development is the stuff we do, the stuff our lawyers do to get out, build, cultivate relationships, genuine, authentic relationships, and reputation with folks in a position to hire and refer. You can't buy that. Lawyers got to go out and earn it because they get to know their client and become that trusted advisor. The client senses they really care, and they go visit the client, and they meet deadlines, and keep their bills within line, and build that trusted advisor relationship. Succession planning is starting to creep up. This is a relatively new thing we are seeing the past, probably 2 or 3 cycles. Succession planning seems to be creeping up the list of priorities. And I think, as your lawyers, your founding partners, if you're still a first-generation firm, are moving into their 60s, we should have been starting our succession planning a while back. But we're doing a lot of work in this area. If you care about sustainability, if you care about legacy, you got to have some succession planning going on and helping the seniors when it's time for them to move along, and investing in your juniors and their skill sets, the marketing, the leadership, those sorts of things. Firm-first culture, improving lawyer productivity, those are some of the things firms are working on. What have been your biggest challenges to improve profitability? Rates, lawyer productivity. If you haven't checked out the Altman-Weil Law Firms in Transition report, comes out every year. You should. That should be on your must-reading list when it comes out. Thomson Reuters does a study with Georgetown Law as well called State of the Legal Profession, and I think that's a must-read every year. Circulate those reports to your partners. Maybe call out or highlight with a yellow marker the really important stuff you want them to get so they can kind of browse through it and get the gist of what you want them to glean from the report. But distribute those things. Talk about them at your meetings, improving lawyer productivity. In any event, where I was going is Altman-Weil's report, number one way to improve profitability, deal with this issue, lawyer productivity, and de-equitize if it's become chronic and you've had the difficult conversation and that lawyer is not willing to step up his or her game. I think there's a point at which we have to look at de-equitization. And the Altman-Weil people say that that's the most effective way to achieve improved profitability, is to de-equitize your chronic underperformers. Tough stuff. but we're running a business, not a fraternity, not a country club. Has your firm changed the way it's pricing its services in the last 5 years? And less than 5% say significantly. I think that flat fees, fixed fees, alternative fee arrangements are going to become more and more prevalent. We seem to see that sticking at about 18% of total commercial legal work is done on the billable hour. But pricing, I'm working with this same firm in Atlanta. They do a lot of routine work helping startups. And, why not just create the standard documents? We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time and put that out there as a flat fee. So that's what they're going to do. And, of course, we'll shadow bill that at standard hourly rates to get a handle on whether or not it's profitable. Here's a series of questions on technology. And we drilled down on this in this year's survey. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I'm looking at questions, and I type those questions in if you got anything you want me to talk about between now and the end of our session. And as I mentioned earlier, or call me offline, and I'm happy to chat as long as you'd like. Technology, this is changing everything. It really is. Better, faster, cheaper. Artificial intelligence, it's coming. Blockchain. I went to the ABA's tech show for the first time this year. It blows you away what's out there in terms of practice management tools, time and billing software, case management, document management. The ABA tech show, you got ILTA as well. But you gotta adapt and embrace technology. Here's the managing partners. We asked the 167 firm leaders which statement best reflects your opinion of how technology is going to impact the marketplace for legal services. And almost 60% say it's changing everything. There's some that think it will replace lawyers. I don't think it's going to replace lawyers. Our College of Law Practice Management does a futures conference every year, and the term I heard bantered around quite a bit was TAR, T-A-R, Technology-Aided Research. A computer can review a document a hell of a lot faster, cheaper, and more accurately than a third-year associate from Harvard. Clients know that. Sophisticated clients know that. And what are we doing to embrace technology and process improvement? All of this flies in the face of the billable hour to do it better, faster, cheaper. We asked, as important as technology is, how satisfied are you on 1 to 10 scale with your firm's overall IT systems? 7, 8? I think it could be higher. What percentage of revenue is your firm investing in technology? And we got a nice bell curve here, most in that 3 to 4% range. But look at here, you got 5% of firms claiming they're spending north of 7% of their gross revenue on technology. Ooh, I'd really be interested to drill down on those firms and see exactly what they're doing. There's a group in Cleveland, Ohio, and they've set up a wholly owned subsidiary called Connective Counsel, and they're marketing it to other law firms. And it's very client-facing, but check out Connective Counsel if you're interested in something innovative that a mid-sized firm, smaller firm is doing in Cleveland. To get ahead of it, not hide behind it, not get dragged along for change, they're ahead of change. It's coming. And are we slow to adapt or are we investing? This next set of questions ask, what's your spend over the last 3 years in various aspects of technology? So this gray bar is we're spending about the same as we did 3 years ago. We've increased our spending in this area 2 to 10%, 11 to 25%, or more substantial investments. So in case management, all of these are going to be green, by the way, as you're going to see firms really stepping up their investments in technology in just about every area. So here's case management, here's cyber, here's e-discovery, here's website and internet-based marketing. This would include search engine marketing and those sorts of things. Here's artificial intelligence. I think a lot of managing partners firms are not sure what to make of artificial intelligence and what to do about it. But it is coming. We all use it now, whether we realize it or not, when we dictate a message into our iPhone, or we use Dragon for dictation software. We're all using artificial intelligence, and it's only going to come on more and more and more. And my sense is a lot of managing partners are not sure what to do with this. They're kind of keeping an eye on it, but not really acting proactively. Here's CRM and the database. Here's competitive intelligence. Here's legal research. Looky there, we got a decrease. It's not many libraries anymore, but so much research is now, just Google it. I sat in on a demonstration with a client looking at West's new product called West Edge. That'll blow you away. If you're a litigation firm, have your Thomson Reuters rep come in and share with you what that's all about. Your litigators will you'll watch their eyes bug out. Over the last 3 years, here it is again. Firms' top technology priorities this year. So there we go, technology. Do you do it in-house or do you outsource it? And 46% of firms say we do it in-house. We have an IT director. 18% of firms outsource all of it. So no right or wrong way to do that. And the managing partners I chat with, have very diverse opinions on this. Going to the cloud, that's another thing. Some are there because it's safer in the cloud. Others still like those servers and want to watch those blinking lights in an air-conditioned room. So we just moved to the cloud. I will say it's slower, but it's cheaper for me, and I can access our databases and our work product and such wherever I am on any old machine. It takes a little getting used to, but I like it. How about your IT staff? That's real close to the graph we saw earlier about overall IT performance at your firm. Right there at about an 8, nice bell curve. But these firms down here should be very, very nervous. You need good, strong IT professionals who think strategically, who can train your people to use the technology you're buying, that technology integrates. I think a lot of firms buy stuff, they don't fully utilize it, and a lot of one-offs. We don't take a strategic, holistic approach to our investments in technology. And ideally, time and billing should interface with CRM, should interface with, case management. All of this stuff should be interfaced. Getting there is not easy, but I think you just can't bury your head to this and hope things are going to solve themselves. KPIs. That's the first time we asked a set of questions on key performance indicators. And at our managing partner, it's funny, at our conference live, we give the folks audience polling technology. And we had 105 managing partners in the room this year, and we did some questions on KPIs here. And our first question out of the box was, is your law firm using KPIs? Yes, no, or what the hell is a KPI? And the number one answer was, what the hell is a KPI? Key performance indicators. This is typical, lawyers don't think like business people. And we're using KPIs. We just don't think of them as KPIs. We don't call them KPIs. but most law firms are keeping an eye on the billable hours and collections by lawyer, by office, by client. Those are KPIs. So we'll look at some of these here, and I'm in the process of writing a book on KPIs because I think most firms are looking at today's performance in terms of our KPIs. We're looking at numbers. We're looking at financial KPIs, operational KPIs. And I think it's important to think a little more future-oriented on what we measure. And I'll share that as we go through this next set of slides and then move to our questions and answers at the end. So we asked revenue per lawyer. I believe if we had to identify one KPI to monitor the firm's overall financial health, this is it, revenue per lawyer. Not profit per equity partner, because that can be manipulated very easily, revenue per lawyer. And here we just put it out there to ask people, and we got them from less than $300,000 a year to over $600,000 a year. But revenue per lawyer is a good metric to keep an eye on, and that's what our sample size told us. Billable hour expectations. Are we keeping an eye on utilization, realization? And what is the billable hour expectation for equities, we asked? And that's a pretty wide array. We got some down here in the 1,600 hours per year expected, some up here at 1,800. I would suggest that these are likely insurance defense firms up here where we're asking our firm owners to kick in 2,000 hours a year billable. You still got a sliver of firms here at 2,100 hours. But I think as an equity partner comes along, their contributions are less about billable hours and more about the non-billable firm contributions, the rainmaking, the mentoring and training, the leadership and governance. And, let's push those billable hours down to our associates, keep them busy, and untie the equity partners from billable hour requirements that prevent them from doing the more important non-billable firm building stuff. David Maister talks about this in True Professionalism. Great book if you haven't read it. I highly recommend it. But Maister talks about billable hours. That's important for today's income. And it's important, billable hours. But what we do with our non-billable time, contends Maister, and I agree, is far more important because that determines our future. And investing in our people, investing in our clients, investing in our firm. Non-billable. And in too many law firms, billable hours aren't measured, aren't rewarded, don't matter. We don't get much of it. But I think the non-billable contributions are really, really important. Here's that billable hour expectation of our associates. This is a nice bell curve, around 18 to 1,900 hours per year. This is consistent with a lot of national surveys we see as well. ALM, Survey of Law Firm Economics, and ALA in its Compensation and Benefits Survey has some data there about associate hours and expectations. Lawyers love the benchmarking data. I missed a slide. I didn't talk about that one. That's the expectation we have of counsel, typically reserved for senior lawyers as they move toward retirement. And in many firms, we don't have a very high expectation of our of counsel. And that's, I guess, to be expected. KPIs. Here we ask, does your firm monitor utilization, realization? 82% say, you bet we do. Those are KPIs. Lawyers just don't think of them in these terms. Percentage of fees generated through alternative fee arrangements. The way to read this is, in 45% of law firms, less than 10% of revenue is derived through alternative fees. In about 3% of law firms, more than half of revenue is derived through alternative fees. I would suspect these are plaintiffs' firms out here for the most part who are working contingency. But the national surveys are telling us that alternative fees are about 18%, and it looks like our data pretty closely reflects that. What percentage here is now a more futuristic KPI to pay attention to? And that's how much of our work is generated by lawyers in their 60s. There is a study, I have it in another slide deck, that the ABA and the Canadian Bar did a couple of years ago that looks to the aging out in many law firms and how much work is generated by lawyers in their 60s and 70s. And it's cause for alarm. We need to get our young lawyers bringing in clients, bringing in matters. So as our seniors move out, we're not watching clients move out with them. So I think this is an important KPI to keep an eye on. And are we seeing our younger lawyers bringing in more clients, more matters, so we're not heavily dependent on our seniors to feed everybody? It's fine as long as they're around and healthy. But as they move into their 60s and 70s and start to slow down or have a health concern going on, things can get a little dicey if we're heavily dependent on senior lawyers to feed everybody. So I think this is an interesting KPI to take a look at. I'm doing more and more work in this area, and it's really interesting when you develop the report that puts that out there. What percentage of work is originated by our 60s and 70-somethings. Here's a KPI that I think is becoming increasingly important, is diversity. And clients are more and more demanding it. We're just not talking about it. But we want to see diversity working on our files. And so what percentage of our equity partners, is the question we asked, are women and minorities? And the way to read this is, in half of law firms, less than 20%. It's still a good old boy world in many, many law firms. And I think bringing on diversity and inclusion is really, really important. We're doing a fall symposium for the Managing Partner Forum in Chicago and honing in on attracting and retaining young lawyers. They care about this issue. Young lawyers care about diversity. They want to see it. Clients care about diversity. They want to see it. The community care about it. And to be honest, I think it's the moral thing to do. It's the right thing to do to embrace diversity. And I still run into firms that aren't there. And often it takes the old white guy who gets it to be a champion for this cause. But it might be an interesting KPI to pay attention to. Are you providing leadership training for your lawyers? This is a very future-oriented thing. What percentage of our young lawyers are going through leadership training? What percentage of our young lawyers are going through marketing and business development training? These are more forward-thinking KPIs, but I think very important KPIs. And are we investing in these skills of our younger lawyers? And only about 1 in 4 firms claim to be investing in leadership skills of young lawyers. One in 4. Here's another one that I really liked. We had a diversity, we did a panel at our conference, and one of our panelists was a CPA. Does a lot of work with law firms on compensation systems and buyouts and valuations and these sorts of things. Does a lot of work in the middle market. And the fellow's name is Roger Hayes, Hayse. He's out of Dallas, Texas. And so as a panelist on this thing we were going to talk about KPIs, I asked each of our panelists to talk to me about the KPIs they think are important. The accountant came in with this one. I was expecting the accountant to give me the numbers, I want revenue per lawyer and receivables and work in progress and these financial KPIs. he came up with this one: client satisfaction. Are we measuring client satisfaction, soliciting client feedback? It's still shocking to me that less than 1 in 4 say they do in a systematic way. Happy clients come back. Happy clients spread word about your firm. They're your number one source of referrals. Are we paying attention to how satisfied our clients are with our firm and its services? And we talked a lot about this at our conference, and I was very surprised the number of managing partners that heard this and are enacting client satisfaction programs within their law firms. And you can do it through post-engagement questionnaires. You can do it by hiring an outside consultant, go out and talk to your clients. You can train your lawyers to go visit clients and ask smart questions. You can do it a lot of different ways, and you can blend these techniques. But client satisfaction, some firms will factor that into partner compensation as well and have some kind of client satisfaction mark among the more subjective criteria as to how we evaluate partner performance. I think that's pretty enlightened. I think that's pretty interesting. I like it. Flip side, how about your employees? Some firms are starting to put together a cultural index. Culture. Do your people like working at your firm? Happy people are productive, loyal, will help you recruit their friends and colleagues. Do we care about employee satisfaction? And in 71% of firms, it would appear we don't care enough to measure it. But the idea of maybe doing something to assess your employees and how engaged they are, how satisfied they are. Attrition's very expensive, as we all know. If you've got associates, it's a revolving door. That's expensive. And what can we do to retain our young legal talent? Ask them, are you happy? What can we do to make you happier and deliver the goods? So all of this stuff, the KPIs and the practice management is I think looking forward, recognizing we're running a business and trying to get a real good focus on our future. I have another slide here that has it's a rearview mirror of a car, and you look in the rearview mirror and it's clear where we've been, but you look out over the front hood of the car and it's very blurry. Law firms tend to look at the past and the precedent of where we've been, and I think it's important to look at the future and recognize we're running businesses, practice management, the business of law, more important than ever. Our wrap-up question of the survey participants is, how do you feel about the future? And law firms are feeling pretty good right now. The economy's rolling along. Transactional practices are busy as can be. And most lawyers, in spite of all this change and turbulence, are feeling pretty good. And I don't know, I look at this survey, the results of this survey question, and sometimes ask, are we fooling ourselves? Should we be a little more sensitive to re-engineering the firm and how it practices and how it runs the business side of the firm? Billy, we're at the top of the hour. I see no questions coming in, so I'm going to kick it back to you. Here's our contact information. Anyone wants to reach out, you know where to find us. And thank you for hearing me this afternoon. Enjoyed being with you.
Thanks so much, John. We are out of time here. I do not see any more questions. So at this time, on behalf of ALA, I would like to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. Also, a big thank you to John for sharing his presentation with us today. Please take a moment to complete the brief survey you should see on your screen momentarily. We sincerely appreciate any of your feedback as it does help us improve our future webinars. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. This does conclude today's webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.